anybody was at my talk yesterday, but I'm Steve Gompertz, for those who don't know me. I'm a consultant. There's my company. I've been in the medtech industry for 34 years, primarily on the devices side, but some combination product as well, and some exposure to pharma. And I actually started my career in software development. So I have a heart for software in and as a medical device, and for any sort of software tools that could be applied to the process. So this talk is about AI as it applies to doing risk management. So we're not talking about how do you manage an AI-based device. This is about, is anybody started to head down that pathway of what can we do to apply AI? So I just got to, I have some feeder questions, but otherwise hopefully the energy and we'll go where it goes. There's no plan, like I said, no slides. But I do want to ask the first question. So has anybody started using AI tools in risk management? So let us know what you're doing.
I'm very careful because
You're Ben?
Ben Gorson, Philips MRI, and head of risk management for MRI scanners. We started using it by just making a prompt. It's not a small prompt. It took it 9 hours to come to an answer.
Wow, okay.
And the simple question was, can you give me the safety characteristics of an MRI device? In essence, it's a longer prompt. It's almost a page long. It came back with 84 pages.
Wow, okay. This is ChatGPT or something?
This is ChatGPT and some others also.
Okay, so, but general large language models.
And my specialist using it, I'm not a specialist, so let me also be honest there. But for the purpose of, in thinking, I can't trust at this moment that they deliver a perfect characterization sheet. They don't know our product, it's on public data. I can't feed it with my private data because it's a public tool. I don't have a
that's why I was asking whether you're using it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pure on data you can find on the internet. I have used that out there from various companies, standards that are there, etc., etc. It gave me this worksheet, and I thought, okay, going through it, I missed a lot of elements that are in my characterization worksheet. I expected some. But there were two that I thought, wait a minute, do we cover them sufficiently? So I use it now for challenging ourselves on, hey, can the AI be a kind of mirror to see if we missed something? And there I found it helpful. I'm very hesitant to take it to the next step.
I'm just relying on it, and this is the gospel, and according to ChatGPT. How do you guys, what kind of reactions did you have to that, to hearing that approach?
Yeah, that's a good approach. I tried in a similar way, not for the characteristics. I'm Shailendra from Siemens Healthineers. Before I used to work with Philips. I recently moved to the Siemens Healthineers, and I'm responsible for risk management of AI medical devices. Okay. So as I'm new to Siemens, the first thing that I did is using ChatGPT, which is very much internal in Siemens Healthineers. Okay.
Yeah, please.
And I asked to create the risk management file for this medical device based on the intended use and all the documents that I have shared, to see the maturity of risk management file that I am holding in my hand and what does AI thinks about it. So I simply asked to create a risk management file based on the inputs. I have given the design file, I have given the intended use, I have given the claims, and I asked to create a risk management file as an output. Okay, it did come up with some things, and what I did is I want to compare now this risk management file and see the maturity of what do you think? Do I meet the state of the art? So that's the next prompt. So there are a series of prompts, but I see there is a difference in nomenclatures and the practice that AI uses from the outer world and the practices that we have internally. So that's where I could see some differences.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we are thinking to actually look for some AI tool for risk management that also includes post-market.
Did anybody have sort of a negative reaction to what he was saying? Oh my God, really? No, we're all forward thinkers going, this is the way to go, we got to practice. We refine this over time?
So my view is kind of, I take it as an assistance tool. So again, like what everyone says, I do it myself, and as you were saying, I get to check, have I missed something? Is there something there?
Yeah.
And I feed it the standards. I went to YouTube and found all the talks I could find on ISO 14971, the tips, everything, fed it into ChatGPT. So again, only use public data. I said, is there anything missing? I just picked up a couple of things, just small things. But you know, again, like a medical device, if you make a small mistake, it trickles on. But then I think as an assistance tool is really good, but I think we're decades away from you can just chuck it in there and it does everything for you.
Well, yeah, I think that's a given, right? I've tried ChatGPT on some, regulatory device classification questions, and I found that it likes to make up FDA product codes. So obviously,
I really disagree with that decades away.
Yeah, I disagree also.
I think we're maybe a couple of years.
So the next part is if I could have, and we're discussing, if I could have a local with internal network develops AI tool
close
running,
AI,
pulling the data from outside also, but feeding it really with my data. And simple first thing to check, find me all the inconsistencies between the users doing, designers doing, processes doing, risk trace metrics, etc., etc., etc. I'm convinced it will find inconsistencies that we have not seen. So I really want to move that way, but then we need AI tools that are available locally, controlled in the data where it resides.
I'm sure that's just around the corner.
But that we have that. Medtronic has that. We have instead of Chat GPT, we have Medtronic GPT.
Well,
Yeah, we have
we do
Yeah.
too, but that doesn't, I mean, I know what you're saying. It should go right in and read all of our documents. Like we use.
Yeah, Copilot. We have Copilot.
Yeah, but we use Windshield, for example, right? We don't have a local AI that is basically trained on all of the documents that we've ever created and fully has that knowledge within itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
We use Copilot for helping to use tools and things like that, and it's great, fantastic, but it's not really, it doesn't know the organization yet. But I'm sure that's.
yeah. So this is where I kind of was going to take my next, feeding question here was, how do you refine this and turn it into a tool you can rely on? Has Medtronic started to look at that? Sounds like you've got more closed loop system. Because I was thinking, you talk about, well, you got 84 pages of information, and how do you know which of it is hallucination and which of it is realistic? And then, to me, the trade-off is, like you said, you don't want to rely on an open AI because you can't have it sharing your IP, so you need closed. But it's almost like you need both, right? You want to know what you've done in the past and have it assessed and say, oh, it looks like you guys missed this, and then help see in the future. But at the same time, the open piece of it is we can see what others are maybe working on. I mean, who didn't think to keep theirs closed? But just the general thinking, right? I mean, the minutes from the International Conference on Medical Device Safety Management, right? Hey, we know there's all these presentations that happen, and we can keep building that knowledge. So I'm curious, where do you think it needs to go in terms of establishing, how do you validate this as a tool? And so you can rely on it, not just be, all right, that was interesting to see what it came up with. What do you guys think?
I think it cannot depends on whether you're basically using it as for finding inconsistencies or if you're asking it to create the work for you.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it, right? Is finding where we've been inconsistent or where we totally have a gap in something.
And it
like
can
that.
totally do that today.
Now, on the other hand, I was just reading something the other day, right? We've got AIs that are developing cancer treatments, right? That they think that within a few years they'll be able to treat them all because it can find that kind of stuff. So it can obviously generate, but you're right. I don't think they got there first without figuring out could it even understand and pick up on
I think the
errors.
hallucination thing is also probably just a temporary. It's already getting a lot better. Like, if you compare the latest Claude, 3.7, it checks itself. Like when you ask it a question, it checks its answer. Does that make sense? And then, if it thinks it doesn't, then it totally corrects itself. I tend to think that as the AI progresses, which is going at breakneck speed, hallucinations are probably going to become much more self.
Yeah, I was thinking about this other day. I use ChatGPT a lot. I've been using it for about a year and a half, 2 years. And more recently, I think it's sort of had a breakthrough with me because I start to recognize that it recognizes me
It does.
I,
And it likes to be.
for any of you, I may be connected on LinkedIn, I posted something a couple weeks ago, because I was really surprised. I got on the ChatGPT one day, and before I could even ask a question, it queried me and said, I know you pretty well now, would you like to hear a summary of what I think are your strengths and weaknesses, or something along those lines? And I went, yeah, sure. And it was really good. I was like, wow, this thing's paying attention. And now I see it when I ask it questions, it kind of comes back to me and says, well, I know you'd like it like this kind of thinking. It's like, so I would assume, right, as you build up that knowledge base, it just keeps refining itself until it can customize answers. You had something?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I'm Andre from BTL Industries. I'm responsible for R&D. We are, I'm pushing really engineering team and a lot of people in the company to experiment with AI. At the very beginning, we were discussing the security, the safety of the data, and OpenAI, all those things. And we made decision, okay, we are a microscopic company compared to Medtronic. We made decision that really this is a train, we have to go in, and we shall not hesitate and hesitate that our data can be stolen, our things. We are using Google, we are using a lot of tools. Data are vulnerable, every one of you is using. If you say Medtronic has own AI, does not mean has our own language model. Language model is AI, OpenAI language model, I would say, or any other third party. So you are sending the data, but maybe more controlled way. This is it. So we started, we are experimenting with that. One thing which you mentioned is, and this is really why sometimes people are coming and saying, oh, I'm not getting the right answers, I don't trust it, because it is really mapping you, and it is your personal assistant. As a human being, assistant of director 1, 3, and 4 behave completely different.
So does it start to model your own flaws?
This is it.
And now you don't recognize that you're getting bad answers because it's what you've always thought. Hey, isn't that great? That's exactly what we would have done.
Exactly.
It came up with the same thing I would have done anyway.
If you don't want to hear something, by the way, this is a great way
This
to
is
interact.
a really interesting
By this
aspect
voice
of it,
mode,
right?
I'm interacting very often with the voice mode, with ChatGPT. It's great, it has emotions, and it's very good consultant, let's say. And we were discussing this reliability, how we can trust the information, and there is, for me, one philosophical question, how can I trust the consultant? He's sitting in front of me and telling this and this and this is true. How can I trust him? Okay, a lot of titles, a lot of experience. If I don't trust AI, I see there are thousands of, they say, OpenAI say there are tens of thousands of PhD level knowledge inside of the system, mixed somehow. So for me it's the same question. If I trust the external consultant, the human being one, trust with not validating and verifying what he's saying, I think I'm doing the same failure, the same mistake if I trust the AI. So for me it's assistant and it's really learning very fast.
And luckily all external consultants are brilliant and absolutely right. I see where you're going with this, right?
And just one remark, you mentioned the FDA will use it for files and other things. We had one experience a few months ago that we prompted our own agent for cross-check of user manual and other documentation we are submitting. And my colleague from regulatory wrote me that you won't believe, but I received the same sentence and formulation from the FDA as an official answer, which our system gave us as a feedback. So I would say, at least as an assistant, some way or some kind of AI they're using it today. They have to, because it's not possible to go through the files to find all those discrepancies, all those problems which are like formal problems, but anyway, which they are pointing very often. So yeah, they are.
Very interesting. Right. So sorry that we have had two people who are using it. Well, you guys applied, you guys are using it as well, right? So
And for Siemens Healthineers also, we have a closed loop AI.
okay, yours is closed.
So we can actually share our RISC files without any.
Are you using it, so did you talk about sort of the progression of prompts that you gave it to kind of dig in? Are you actually using that information in your risk management artifacts?
Yeah, actually, my intention was to, I hope that I find something that I can add into risk file, but the maturity of risk file was good enough, so, yeah. But I cannot, I just need to have some human to actually properly interpret and translate into my procedures because of nomenclature and those type of issues.
The thing is, AIs at the moment are all inference machines, right? They're trained by these big companies on essentially the content of the internet, and then you give it something in the token window, and different LLMs have different size token windows, but that's the information that they take and then run through their LLM, and then you get the output. They haven't actually been trained on your particular company's data, right? They've been trained on the internet, you give it the token window, and you get the output. When things get really interesting is when companies have their own neural networks, right? That's actually trained on their company data, so that data becomes the knowledge of the network. Then you can really start asking it questions. You know, it's not just the token window information. You can ask it anything, and it'll go and look at the knowledge that it's been trained on, and then give you the answers based on that. Hopefully, as well, it will continue to be trained as it goes along. When new information comes along, or new documents get generated, and it all goes into this thing and continuously trains the network. That's probably, hopefully, what's going to happen next. But that means people or companies are actually going to physically have to have these GPUs or like neural network devices sitting there in their company as their local AI.
Yeah, as we have a closed loop AI, I know what are the areas that it has access and what are the inputs that I have to give. So I can upload the attachments, and also the advantage that I have seen is I can ask the AI why you are giving me this advice, and what is your reference or background, or what is your assessment to give me this advice. Okay, so it could actually help me to identify a file, history file. It was like 7 years back. Someone has done it, and I'm new to the company, and I understood why this suggestion has come up. And it also helps in that way for closed loop AIs.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? And there's a lot of talk about, if you get into Google around, right, it gives you the AI-based summary, and it has a link, right, so you can see where did that come from, right? So
yeah,
and that's kind of a good segue. The next thing I was going to ask about was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, on the device software side, there's this AI framework that came out about 2 years ago from the US, Canada, the EU, just the 3 of them. And one of the elements in this framework for industry was about transparency. So those of you who are using it and generating actual artifacts, are you going to tell the regulatory agency that AI helped generate it?
No, that's the part where we say, hey,
Yeah.
we are as human in control.
Yeah.
We own what we have as documents.
That's right.
We review, we approve. It's an assistant. It helps us thinking. It's challenging us.
Do you need to cite your sources though? So I teach at a college, and I tell my students, if you use ChatGPT, I need to see it cited as a source.
yeah.
I'm okay with you doing that.
I think the other way around. So the term validated tool also came by somewhere.
Yeah.
It's an unvalidated tool.
Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to rely on the data it gives. Therefore, it is just an information source for me as a human, and I make choices. That's my approach.
Yeah.
Do they tell us?
Well, somebody made the point, right? It looks like they're using it. Did they tell us, right? Yeah.
But there is one big challenge really in this closed loops AIs, and it's from one of presentation, garbage in, garbage out, organization of the company data. Really, if we want to have really closed looped, really strictly our own trained AI, we need to have well organized data, and this is really a very big challenge. So if we are preparing ourselves for the future, that it will come in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it will be really natural thing. First question is how well our data are organized today and how these data are reliable. If you want to toy with such things, just really toy with that, I can really recommend the tool which is called Notebook LM from Google. You can really simulate it in this tool because this really works, that you will upload your files and it is giving you answer only based on your files. And if there is no answer in the file, answer is, I don't know, it is not listed. And it's providing you the references. So I'm using it for our internal purposes for newcomers. Really, I put all training data to that. I'm giving them the link to the chatbot, and the chatbot provides answers and link to the document. And you can really toy with this tool. It's for free or $20 per month if you are not using this as a company, the Google Workspace. And you can see how it can work if there are no external sources of knowledge. If you do the same with ChatGPT, of course it will start to hallucinate and bring you some ideas from outside. So yeah, this can be very easily tested, at least how this closed loop can look like in your company if you don't have it today. And this greatly identifies the discrepancies in your documents. First we'll use it for that. We just uploaded SOPs, internal trainings, other things, and I was asking, okay, find me discrepancies. Find me what is not working in between of these two documents, and I was really surprised. It was not a short list. With small things, just small things, not big things. But anyway, it was really good point for correction.
Very interesting. So let me flip it a little bit. Is there anything you wouldn't want it to get into, that you would not use it for within the risk management process?
I think sensitive data. I mean, I know you mentioned closed loop systems, but sometimes, you might have a closed loop system, but it might be only 3 or 4 people in the company know about that particular type of product. So I think in those situations, you don't want to be giving it certain types of data where you feel as though if that information went out, it might have a harm. So I think that's what it comes down to, because again, these models are always learning. It might be somebody puts in there and a question goes into there and they receive an answer that they shouldn't be receiving based on data that they shouldn't have had in the first place. So I think that's the situation basically, where maybe you don't want to be using it.
Yeah, I think the IP elements are pretty well understood. I was just thinking in terms of some of the artifacts, right, that we have to produce as part of doing risk management. Is there any we're going, no, that's a bit too far. We wouldn't go there.
There is a guidance on what document level IP we can actually give it to AI, even in the closed loop.
Okay.
We have a guidance on that.
So
And
as
we
long as
only-
you've got a good classification scheme.
We were asking AI to classify the document
No,
first.
no.
Now,
It's-
but the
it's
other
there.
part is, of course, which data do you want to get to? Even if I don't be allowed, it's not IP related. Do you want data of a patient in your complaint, just in TrackWise in our case, hidden, only few people can access it, but it might be relevant for assessing your complaint from risk perspective, for instance, the weight aspect and those kind of things could be relevant. You want to give that to people because it's continuing to learn. For a human, we're not allowed to use this information anymore. You have to forget it. Well, that's already difficult. For AI, it's almost impossible to forget it. So this is also an ethical thing. It's about patient data.
What if it's de-identified patient data?
Yeah.
Then it shouldn't be a problem.
I think the
Sorry.
type, sorry, I was going to say, I think the type of system using, so Claude, GPT, Gemini, they all have different functions. So I think it's a case of, use the right type of GPT for the kind of thing you're feeding into it. So, ChatGPT might be great as an overall one, but then Gemini might be better for the other. Claude might be better for writing things like articles. So I think you kind of got to be selective, and I think to get the best out of AI, you've got to use multiple different systems because they're all good at certain types of different things. In the same way, the analogy is like a vehicle, you wouldn't take an SUV to a racing track, but you wouldn't take a race car to go, up a mountain. It's kind of use the one that's best for that purpose.
But if I need them all within my company's network, I get a debate, and that's the reason we have Copilot, but not we have the internal Philips one also, but with limited license, because it's all about money in the end for the business. So I don't have access to the internal Philips Copilot where it exists, because it's a money aspect. Now, if we get to the other tools, hey, that's additional cost for the business. So you have to find somewhere a balance of added value.
Good. Any topics anybody wants to jump into and offer up here? Anything coming to this, did you have anything in mind? Go, we talk about this.
I mean, if we want to build an AI tool that does risk management completely. Where could we find the data to train that? What do you think the data is?
So like if you're a startup and you have no data, right? Where do you get
But
reliable?
I just don't want to train in the data that my company holds, because I will be not improving myself, and might be repeating some gap always. I want it to be trained not only with the internal information but also from the competitors. And what I see, the data that is available from competitors is mostly from adverse event databases, right? Or some literature or clinical literature, but that is not good quality data that I could, because the amount of information in adverse event database, the way of writing that, okay, and yeah, that is not a good data. So I am looking, if I want to build an AI tool which does a complete risk management as I can do. So where should I get trained? Where should I train the?
But if you haven't done it yet, right, if it's brand new,
Yeah, that's
probably just an evolution of what you've done before.
yeah.
So,
My
I mean, it might be difficult with the tools we have today, but probably in the not too distant future, we should be able to give it that history of data that we've got, and then say, but now we want it to be done slightly differently and explain the difference.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be smart enough in the not too distant future to be able to then do that for you.
But if I then take a concrete example, I'd say we had a discussion this week on calculation of the overall residual risk. So if I would go to ChatGPT now and ask a number of questions for it, it could get to some of the scientific papers that are there, which we were debating. Should you use it or absolutely not use it? So if you're not already familiar to some level, you might be put on a completely wrong foot. So yeah, that's also what minimum knowledge do you need to assess if the data that AI gives you is valuable to use.
Some of those questions are company decisions though, right? Which you
Yeah,
can't
but
expect any, you can't
if you're a
expect any-
startup, you don't have a lot of people who can tell you.
Well, then you have to go to a consultant today, and
The right
who knows, in the future, there may be AI
Exactly.
consultants, right?
Yeah, but you might be somebody. It's just where the little nagging.
Sorry,
No, because I was just thinking, I'm about to check out a new tool that I found. Offers us, said, hey, you could be available to your clients 24/7. And basically it learns how you would answer questions.
Yeah, right.
You know, kind of like when, you're on QuickBooks, right, and a little thing pops up, you want to talk to, get an answer to a question, you're not talking to the person, you're talking to their bot, right? And now they're saying, oh, we have consulting bots. So, right, you were there. I don't know if it works, I haven't tried it yet.
But one question which comes to my mind is like, how do you represent that AI approach in your quality policy, which should come from senior management somehow? And are they aware of that AI is used in the risk management? And what is, let's say, how do you reflect that in the policy?
I would say, I would answer, this is question on that, I would answer today, okay, we are asked to gather data from all possible sources. This is one of the sources. It exists. It is right to say it does not exist, I don't want this data. No, it's not right, so I am using it. But still, I'm the responsible process owner or risk management owner, and I make decision, but this is one source of data for my brainstorming. And I consider that. So it's totally fair. What I don't think will be the reality in the future, I hope it's not going to be the reality, is that AI makes decisions. AI decided this, nobody in the company knows why, but it's right because AI is doing this. I hope it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think what it's going to be is, right, you have your quality policy and you have all these other supporting policies. You have to have some sort of AI supporting policy. And I'm going to guess the Medtronics and the bigger companies represented here probably thought about that to put those frameworks. So I just got, I mentioned that, I teach at a college in Minnesota, and when ChatGPT first exploded on the scene, you saw these interviews with people, professors going, well, yeah, I'm now requiring my students to take their tests in class in pencil. Right? And it's like, no, this is here, this is going to happen. Smarter colleges went, we need to quickly get policy in place and say what's okay, what's not, how are you supposed to use it with the right caveats. And so I think it's the same approach there as well. is that, yeah, before you dive in, somebody should be thinking about what are going to be the guardrails on this, because yeah, we're not just going to go, oh, I have this idea for a device, please work up my entire risk management file for me right now. And then go, good, we're ready to submit.
And you raised a great question how to train it. And I would say the same way you are trained as a newcomer in the company. Exactly the same way. They expect you have some education, some background. What does it mean? You read the dozens of books, make some tests, whatever, courses, upload it there. Everything exists in the material. And internal trainings, okay, upload it there. Right now it's trained as a newcomer. This is it. And then experience, experience, experience. Repeat questions, answers, experience. And it is really adapting the answers. And I think this is how to train it.
Yeah, but the thing here is like, how can we define the quality of data is good enough?
For training data.
Yeah, for training. Because I also work on AI medical devices, and we need to actually train the data and then also verify and validate the device with another set of data, right? So this is what I was actually looking for, like which is the data that I have to train, and then when during the verification and validation, where could I get the another data to verify and validate it?
But maybe it could be a new business area for notified bodies and FDA selling our own data back to us.
So FDA notified bodies, if they can collect the data, say, look, we think this is acceptable risk analysis, and they feed that data in, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's like better than an FDA inspector because it can spot certain things. Especially with the FDA layoffs, let's face it, there's less staff there, they need to get more work done, so there's less people, but more work coming in. So they will need to bring tools like this just to keep up with the demand. So I can see something like that. And then as you mentioned as well, if they anonymize the data, they remove any sensitive information, the FDA can say, hey, for X amount of dollars a month, we can offer you this system which can check your risk analysis for you before you even submit, and then people throw money at that.
Something just popped in my head, maybe more entertaining than anything else. When we talk about a ChatGPT or a Claude, it has this sort of perception of you're talking to a singular entity, right? Forget there was AI. Before that, we would be at work and we'd have to figure these hard questions out, and you rarely had one person figure it out. You had multiple people. I'm wondering, is there another stage here we need to see where AIs, we can bring a panel of AIs together and let them argue it out? Right? So ChatGPT says, well, I believe it's this, then Claude goes, no.
Those
Would they
experiments
have
exist.
access to all the
right?
same information?
Well, I'm sorry, say that again?
Would they have access to all the same information?
Well, I think what we're hearing is, no, their models are slightly different, right? The same way we grow up, right, and we learn through different experiences, and that shadows how we present information and process it. And I'm wondering if, yeah, at some point somebody's got to pull it all together and go, yeah, we need to be able to sign on to 6 of them at the same time and have them converse, along with our internal data plus what they're trained on, and get some sort of consensus output. You going to say something?
These experiments already exist.
Is it? Okay.
In between of agent systems, we are in development. They are really making discussions.
Of course, the danger is always that they start inventing their own language and we don't know what they're talking about.
But they are
Everybody remember
discussing
that
it,
happened a few years back?
Yeah.
The two AIs, they had the two bots.
Facebook, I think it was, yeah.
I think it was Facebook, the two bots started talking to each other and they invented their own language. And so they had no idea what they were talking about.
That's scary.
It was very scary.
But I guess that's no more different than 5 people going into a meeting and going out, and 5 people have 5 different perception of what happened at the meeting, and that relies on their
Right,
individual
there's
history.
a whole bunch of questions that pop up from a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
It's no different than what you see in human approaches to things. And would they be subjective to groupthink? They all just come into agreement because they decide to agree with each other.
Yeah.
That sounds good, let's go there, right? Versus, there's always that one idiot in the group if they're a really good speaker. So everybody believes what they say.
So how long before we have, risk management AIs participating in roundtables like this? To be on the forefront of, the latest risk management trends, ideas, ways. Like you said, how do you train them on the latest thing that you want to be doing? I mean, this is where this happens, right?
You could probably do it now. I mean, like with ChatGPT, they have access to all the ISOs, you have access to all the guidance documents. Those are all public, they're all out there.
Mm.
I mean, you could probably have a decent conversation right now.
So why not have next year, in the next conference, as one of the participants, ChatGPT.
I was gonna go there, should ChatGPT
listening to the
have paid for
presenter.
Yeah.
the online version of this so we can listen,
Yeah.
right? Because we're talking a lot about sort of physical information, but what about just somebody listening,
Yeah.
right?
And ask the
Honestly,
Where's
question.
the AI that's listening to all these discussions?
Honestly, I already tried that
Yeah.
in some meetings
Oh,
when we
okay.
were trying really to bring some strategy for some things, the simple things, and it was great because really it was listening, and then just brought very proper and very appropriate way ideas like, okay guys, that was great. It is able to name the names. If it knows based on the voice, that's great. It's, it's really part of the discussion. He's really a member of the discussion, and really brought great ideas. My suggestion would be, this was great, Andre, but what if it was nice? And I heard, or I read somewhere, that in Tesla they have a rule that when they solve a problem, there are two people, two humans, and one AI. Three, let's say, members team.
Okay.
So this is it. But yeah, I think it's future.
Yeah, right, I mean, I use Fathom AI for note-taking, and I believe you can query it, things live, I haven't tried that yet. And say, hey, let's stop for a second and ask Fathom what it's heard us talk about, what do you think's happening? Because, right, yeah, to get that extra opinion. I tell this funny story, I don't know if they do it in Europe, but in the US we used to have, well, we still have this thing, it started as take your daughter to work day, and then it became take your kid to work day, and I took my son, who was probably 10 at the time, with me to work, and this was at Medtronic, actually, used to work there. And I was a project manager for a factory execution system, and I took him to one of the meetings, and he looked totally bored, you can imagine, at 10 years old. And we were trying to develop this system, and we would talk to what were called controlled assembly numbers, we just called them cans. And I don't know what the argument was, but we've been arguing for weeks about how to handle these things, and in this meeting it's going on. And all he hears is can. And he's fiddling with something, and there was a quick pause, and he goes, you guys spend a lot of time talking about cans. Right, everybody kind of looked at me and went, you know, the kid's right. Time to come to a decision, right? You know, it's like, so I get it, right? Have that sort of, it's sort of like the independent reviewer in a design review. Right? That one person who could step back and go, the king is naked. What the heck are you guys talking about? It's an interesting approach here. Any final thoughts? We're coming up on the last 2 minutes here. This has been really good. I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but I appreciate the candor.
I mean, this is recorded. We can probably chuck it into some of the AI systems.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's recorded, yeah.
That's why
Yeah, that's why
we
we're
have
fine.
the
So, yeah.
and the camera there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we're on camera as well. So, yeah. Any final thoughts? Or,
I would just say that for me, the biggest question philosophically is, what is my role today without AI, and what will be my role in the future with AI? This is very important question for all of us, I would say, because honestly, work or portion of work of every single of us in 5 years won't exist, because it will be automated somehow.
So that's why I'm
I've
very
heard, I was in an AI lecture somewhere here, maybe another one, but I mean, you know, the fear that, oh, AI is going to take my job. It's not. You still need people, but AI can augment it or assist you, or you know, you develop some other skill and they do. So we shouldn't have that fear that AI is going to take my job and we out of a job.
Yeah.
You can't.
yeah, they
think
keep
that
saying, right?
way. You have to
Definitely right.
adjust.
You're not going to get replaced by AI. You're
Yeah.
going to get replaced by somebody who's figured out how to partner correctly.
Yes.
with
Yeah.
AI.
I heard a very similar thing, that it will replace those who are not using AI.
Yeah.
Right.
This is
yeah.
it.
Yep.